when we first moved in together at the 1995 Toronto Film Festival, there was a big party at the Bistro 990 upstairs, and in walks Quentin Tarantino. And it was like, Johnny. I always call him Johnny. I was Blackie to him. It's Quentin. So we had prior talked about that like the day before, like how he's resurrected careers and everything. And I'm like, God, you got to meet. You got to.
So Pulp Fiction was out.
Yeah.
John Travolta's career had been resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All of that. So, but he was too shy to go up to him. I said, well, you can't. He's probably going to leave in a few minutes. You got to do something. And I said, well, if you don't, I will. So I walked up to him and I tapped him on the shoulder. He was like, and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, excuse me, Quentin, he was my boyfriend at the time. I said, my boyfriend would really love to meet you. And I pointed across the room and he said, well, who's that? And he kind of looking me up and down. I said, David Carradine. And he went, and he looks and he spots David. He goes, oh my God, I was too intimidated to go up to him. And so
he's a fast talker, isn't he?
Yeah. And I took him by the hand and I introduced them, and it was like a love fest for 20 minutes. It was nonstop. So it turns out that Quentin had Americana, David's movie that he made with Barbara Hershey, and he was a major, he could recite dialogue off the film. And
how crazy is it that both of them, each of them was too shy to go up to the other?
Right. Catalyst. So what happened at the end of the conversation, he had to leave for another schmooze, and I said to David, I said, you can't just drop it here. We got to get his phone number or something. So I said, Quentin, what are you doing for lunch tomorrow? And he goes, well, I'm having lunch with Adam McGoyan. I said, would you like to join us? And I looked at David, and he's like, yeah, I would love to. I said, okay, great, because in the conversation, it was, yes, they would love to work with David, but his reputation was so bad because of the alcohol and things about him not being dependable. And I said, we can fix this. So at lunch the next day, it was a 2-hour.
Was David drinking the night that he met Quentin?
Yes.
Was he drunk?
He was buzzed.
Was it kind of obvious to Quentin, do you think?
I don't think so. David was pretty cool that evening.
Okay. And then how did he hold up the next day at lunch?
He could hold it back. He indulged, but not as much. He held back. So he could be like, he performed a concert for both of them, literally. He was on the piano because they had a piano in Alexander's bar, and he just serenaded them and schmoozed and talked business, and Quentin was just totally enamored. And so by the end of that, he goes, I'll be honest with you, man, I want to work with you. I want to find something, but there's a problem. And so we tried to convince him, no, there was his dialogue, he can hit his marks. And he was a functioning alcoholic. But that wasn't good enough, obviously. So fast forward for the 6 years, schmoozing Quentin, phone calls, emails, calling his office, he's done this, he's done that. As things progressed for David and his reputation improved. And so fast forward to Kill Bill.
So I'm really curious, having been a victim yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually walked in on David Carradine abusing, correct?
Well, visually abusing. Yeah.
You mean not touching?
Not touching, but was written all over his face. And I was like, okay. And that's, PTSD goes. So I turned and walked into the kitchen. I felt like throwing up. It's like, how do I deal with this? What do I do? It's like, you can't help but go into these, state of shock, basically. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and then him denying that's what I saw and that's what it was. And, yeah.
And this was with an underage relative?
I didn't say that.
You've never shared before who it was, and I don't blame you for sharing for their own privacy.
Right.
But did you tell anyone? I guess let me just ask that.
I think I pretty much told a very close friend of mine who knew the whole history, yeah.
So you were pretty sure that he was not just on that occasion, but on other occasions?
I think after we got married, he was totally monogamous to me. Prior to that, not so sure. Because things that happened, I was like in denial. I realized later they were hickeys. It was like, man, you know,
Picky's on.
on David, like on his legs and arms, and stuff, torso. So,
But what about with this particular individual that we're talking about? Do you believe that there is abuse of that person on an ongoing basis?
I suspected, but I was never sure. I was still in that state of, no, he's not, no, everything is fine. He's assured me I'm going to believe him because I can't deal with it otherwise at this moment.
And is that the only person you suspected him of doing that with?
No.
So you believe it could have been serial on his part?
I wouldn't say serial. But I also believed he was kind of, messing around with other people too. So,
right. But
as I wrote about in my book. So,
but if we're talking minors, that's a big issue, and if
That's
we're
a big
talking
issue.
family relationship, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
And that's
but I
basically
can't
what you're
say
saying.
any more about it because that would give more clues, and I didn't do that in the book, and I can't do it now.
And what about the parents of this person? To this day, do you know if that person's parents know?
Well, in the book, it was a family member.
Okay.
I didn't talk about any other.
Okay, I guess I'm making an assumption,
entities.
and again,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't think that the person's identity should be revealed in any
Yeah.
way. I guess I was just assuming that if it was a minor, that you would want the person's parents to be aware of this.
I don't believe it was other people in that sense. In that sense, I don't believe so.
So,
No.
but coming to grips with it must have been a struggle, considering you had been through this. You're seeing somebody else possibly going through this, and what do I do about this?
Yeah, I sought help for me.
And if he was killed, do you have any thoughts as to who or the motive?
There, all sorts of motives. I mean, I have different theories in the book, but it was amazing to both of us that there are still people that held a grudge against him for stealing the role of Kung Fu Kwai Chang Caine away from Bruce Lee. Maybe it was some weirdo that had a grudge and had a lady boy in the room or something. Who knows? Or it was for theft. It could be a number of reasons. I just found it kind of odd that a couple of months prior to him going to Thailand, there's a young man that I ran into, and he said he and his friend worked at a restaurant in Chatsworth, and David came in with like 6 very young Asian girls, and I thought, just David and the girls? And he goes, yeah, that's kind of weird. And he said he was not in a good frame of mind. He was kind of like, I don't know, and he didn't tip. And I went, that's really not David, because David was a very generous tipper, and that was kind of wonky. And then fast forward, he goes to Thailand, and so things just don't connect right. And then plus, when I read in the autopsy report, I definitely believe somebody had intent to do away with him.
So Mark Garagos represented the family after his death, I believe. Correct me if any of this is wrong.
I believe that too. Yeah.
And he made some assertion that he thought it was some type of Thai mafia that was involved. Are you aware of that assertion?
Not specifically of those words, but everybody pretty much said, no, this is definitely not suicide. Something else is wrong here. So, I mean, who knows? The person who came to me via another connection said that one of the people in the room was supposed to be related to a government official, and that they covered up. And that's why they positioned him the way they did in the closet, to make it look like it was something else. And it disappeared in the press, but it was in the press at one point. Like there was a footprint on the bed, and then that disappeared from the press. And so when I consulted with Michael and Sloan and others, it was like, okay, well, that would make sense. If somebody was on the bed choking him, then that would make sense. So,
why was Garagos brought on board? Do you know?
The widow had a wrongful death lawsuit, so that was a whole different thing.
Right. And they were suing the producers of the film, saying that they
company,
failed. Yeah, they failed to properly care for him, protect him, give him security in Bangkok,
All
Thailand.
those things, I believe, yeah.
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 So I guess there would have been some back and forth if he essentially killed himself accidentally or intentionally.
Yeah,
then
insurance and things and legal involvement. I mean,
Right.
they had a wad to figure out.
But I guess
there.
my point is the producers probably would have been off the hook, and the insurance companies. For we always know suicide insurance doesn't apply.
If it was suicide,
If it was
not,
an
not our problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they had
Yeah.
an incentive for this to be that.
Yeah.
Garagos, on the other hand, is pointing out that no, we think that he was killed. You guys were supposed to have security to protect him in this dangerous foreign city.
And they had that surveillance. Well, meaning the Thai police, had that surveillance tape. And I talked to the coroner over there, and I talked to various people at the police department, and kind of kept tabs every once in a while. It was just really too emotional for me to do. But I found out, it was a couple years ago, I believe, that no, the surveillance tape was supposed to have gone over to whatever legal team, and I don't know which one, but it never did. And now the file is closed permanently along with the tape.